Indeed, Mr. President, we're very privileged to have you here today. We are also very grateful that the Chief Justice and the entire judiciary could have found time to honor a man who has dedicated over 50 years of his life to public service. A man whom, when history is written, it shall be said, left his mark. A British statesman, Benjamin Disraeli, once said that the legacy of heroes lies not just in a name, but in a great example that they leave behind. When history is written, Your Excellency, they will have a hard time as historians to say which was your greatest legacy. There will be those who will say probably the introduction of free primary education and the enabling of millions of young Kenyans, particularly from poor families, to access education was your greatest legacy. There will be those who will say perhaps the phenomenal infrastructural development that this country saw in the last 10 years was your greatest legacy. But if I was asked, Your Excellency, I would say the promulgation of the new constitution and the renewal of the institutions we celebrate today was and will remain one of the greatest legacies of your presidency. I say so because a few days ago, Kenyans took pride in seeing justice being dispensed in the highest court in this land, the Supreme Court of Kenya. I can tell you, Your Excellency, that I did serve as counsel in the petition against your neighbor and good friend, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in Uganda, before the Ugandan Supreme Court with Dr. John Haminwa. But the standards I saw before our own Supreme Court in the just concluded presidential petition, I can say with pride that indeed we displayed the finest legal minds, not just in this region, but on the continent and across the world. What we saw was indeed what the French would call the crème de la crème of our legal profession. You made us proud, my Lord, the Chief Justice and judges of Supreme Court. You made us proud, honorable counsels who served before the Supreme Court, from the young Kathy Kilonzo, who won many hearts, to the senior counsels, Ngatia and Oraro. Indeed, as an officer of this court and as a Kenyan, I can say we are very proud. And today, as we honor you, Your Excellency, we also celebrate the institutions that we have put in place for over the last 10 years. And the Supreme Court is one of them. We all remember in 2008, this country suffered a crisis of confidence in its institutions. When differences arose after the general election of 2007, we did not go to court because we had no confidence in our judiciary. We had no confidence in the Electoral Commission of Kenya. Several years later, we come to the Supreme Court to celebrate not just the distinguished career of our outgoing president, but also the very institutions that we have put in place. Indeed, as the Minister for Justice, I was very privileged to be the fourth minister in your administration. When you took power, Your Excellency, in your inauguration speech, you did promise that you are going to ensure that we return the culture of due process, transparency and accountability in the management of our affairs. That, Your Excellency, you have done. You promised that you are going to restore the authority of Parliament and the independence of the judiciary. And that, Your Excellency, you have done. And Your Excellency, today as we come as the third Minister for Justice, I also want to salute my predecessors, beginning with the Honorable Kiraitu Murungi, who was the first minister after you introduced the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs in 2003. The Honorable Martha Karua, the Honorable Mutula Kilonzo, my immediate predecessor. Through their work and during your tenure, Your Excellency, the justice sector, the governance, justice, law and order sector has experienced tremendous transformation. We have seen many acts of parliament passed that have actually introduced new institutions. The passing of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Act in 2008, so the TJRC put in place. The National Cohesion and Integration Act of 2008 has a commission in place. The Supreme Court Act 2011 that introduced the highest court in the land. The Judicial Service Act of 2011 that introduced the Independent Judicial Service Commission. The Judicature Act, Amendment Act 2012, that increased the number of judges of the High Court from 70 to 150, and those of the Court of Appeal have increased access to justice for many Kenyans. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2011 that has seen in place a commission to fight corruption. The Elections Act 2011 that saw a peaceful and successful poll being held in our country. The IEBC Act that saw the introduction of the Independence and Electoral Boundaries Commission that oversaw the historic elections in spite of the great challenges they faced. Indeed, we are glad as Kenyans to sit here today after a peaceful poll, and where disputes arose, we went to the Supreme Court and we resolved them peacefully as Kenyans, without shedding blood and without ruining our economy, Mr. President. We have the Political Parties Act 2011, the Industrial Court Act that has seen the Industrial Court renovated and rejuvenated, the Environmental Land Act 2011, the Vetting of Judges and Magistrates Act 2011 that has seen the vetting of judges and magistrates that's ongoing, and that has also restored public confidence in these key institutions. We also have seen changes in our legal education by passing of the Legal Education Act 2012 and the Kenya School of Law Act 2012. Just to mention a few, Mr. President, there are some of the changes that have come during your tenure, and most of all, we celebrate the new constitution. And as we exit and as you go home, Mr. President, we want to honor you today. We also want to say that you have laid the foundation for the transformation of our nation. And what you leave behind is a great example, as Benjamin Disraeli said, that you can dedicate your life to serve your nation as a servant leader, that you can be a politician and still be a statesman, and still be a servant leader. And above all, that you can put the national interest above regional, tribal, and partisan politics. And that is what you have done in the years coming, in the years past. We also know, Mr. President, that we are still a long way from home. Though we've done well on the road to reforms, we still have a lot to do in terms of ensuring completion of police reforms. From the challenges arising from this election, we know that there's still need for further electoral reforms. We know that the judicial reforms are still ongoing under the very able leadership of the Chief Justice. And all this, we want to say that as you leave, you have given us a firm foundation. And as you prepare, Mr. President, to pass the torch of leadership to the next generation of leaders, led by the President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, that the challenge that still remains is to continue the good work of ensuring the feet of this nation remain on the path of reform. The other challenge is to ensure that we place the feet of this nation on the path of healing and reconciliation. Because, Mr. President, even as we celebrate the progress made, we know that this nation has not healed. We still need to bind the wounds of our past. We still need to unite, reconcile, and heal this nation. But we are a God-fearing nation. And as it's said in Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, that if my people who are called by my name repent and seek forgiveness, I shall hear them from heaven, and I shall forgive them, and I shall heal their land. May the good Lord make us equal to the task ahead, and may He give you a happy retirement, a long life to see all this that you have worked for come to fruition. Thank you, Excellency.